Thank you, Facebook Live, no, YouTube Live. How's everybody doing out there? This is our mastermind panel set up by our career development team of John Meisner and Gianna Warner. Thank you so much. And Brett. Like I said, we're on live stream on YouTube. And today's discussion is about it's an agent mastermind panel about pricing strategies. Who doesn't need to know, be an expert in mastering the craft of pricing their homes? Speaking of mastering their craft, we have an entire panel of people that have mastered that craft. I want to introduce them to you and why they're here. So going down the line here, we've got Vicki McPhee. Why is she here? Because her 2019 residential stats for the entire market closed price to original price ratio, Vicki is 96.2%. Okay. This is great. Kirk DeVries, my buddy Kirk DeVries, original list price to sale price, 95.5%. Matt, good job, congratulations. Matt Patterson's, another great number, 96.3%. Wow, congratulations. Ashley Housing, 97.7%. And our prodigy,
Rook,
Bill Spain, Rookie of the Year, 99.3%. Now, and this is list price to close price ratio. Original list price. So you might find on MLS, if your statistics, you'll see numbers like 88%, 86%. And those might be agents that are just taking listings to get the listing, right? And they're not really just servicing the needs of the client. So, but I also want to introduce our special guest, Nancy Milback.
Milback.
Nancy Milback, who's an appraiser for the appraisal specialist in South Florida. Thank you for joining us. So Gianna was kind enough to send out a list of questions. You just want to go down through the questions?
Yeah, I think it'll introduce. If you guys have any input, if people ask anything online, we'll let you know too.
Well, let's leave it open ended for a second, and let me ask any of you to pipe in here on your listing presentation when you meet with that client, the seller. Is this part of your value proposition? Your list price to sale price ratio?
Yes.
Yeah, feels like it is now.
It is built now, right? And maybe if somebody could give me an example how that you might share that with your client when you're talking about pricing of their home. Anybody?
Mr. 99?
Mr. 99?
Sure, I'll explain it. I mean, it's kind of an easy conversion to explain to people. I mean, if the area average is 97 to 97.5%, and I'm upwards of 99.5%, I mean, you're talking about 2 to 3% per 100,000, right? So you're talking $2,000 to $3,000 for every $100,000. So on a $300,000 listing, the advantage to my sellers that I offer them is I'm going to be able to essentially bring them a lot more money and basically pay for their stuff.
Yeah. So when you break it down into dollars and cents, sometimes percentages. But if you know your audience, you have a $300,000 listing, and you bring that to them, that's pretty fantastic. That's a good way of going. Any other input on how you bring that into your listing presentation? Because you want to talk about it too. If you can't talk about your ratio, talk about your company's ratio, right?
There's two things to that ratio though. Also, is it shows that he's pricing them accurately.
Yeah.
So what speak for myself, what I'm dealing with right now in listing presentations, and I would imagine everyone is, other agents trying to buy the listing and give them a high number in the beginning, and then try to get them back down, reduction. And I'm sure we've all lost listings to that. That it shows that we're telling them the truth and we know what we're talking about.
But sometimes when the other agent buys that listing and overprices it so much, 6 months later we're still getting it.
Amen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me ask
Because
this
they don't
question.
tell the truth.
Yeah. Let me ask this question. This one burns in my mind because I was in production for a number of years, and I didn't know. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. Do you provide pricing info before the appointment? Ashley?
I did not.
You do not.
I do not.
Absolutely.
Sometimes somebody asks you over the telephone, right, this is gonna happen, you have your qualification needs analysis conversation, you go, say, listen, you know, my neighbor just sold theirs for $350,000, I got this, that, and the other, can you just tell me what my home is worth?
David, let me ask you, is your home identical to your neighbor's?
No, not identical.
Then it's gonna be hard for me to give you a price without seeing it.
Bam, because that's gold,
That was pretty easy.
that's gold, because no two homes
You
are
gotta,
identical.
well, you gotta get in front of them.
Yeah, you gotta get in front of them, so.
Sorry, can I just go back to the other, do we have the Keller Williams ratio close to?
Oh, ours is entire market closed to original price ratio, I believe it's 96.3.
Yeah, and Keller Williams is 95.1.
Okay, 95.1.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so when the average market is 96, and you know, you're amongst the creme de la creme, but you know, back to what Matt said, he just nipped that one right in the bud, because no two homes are identical.
Well, is it true too, you don't wanna give them that pricing up front, because you may not be able to tailor.
Well, exactly, because now I just lost a listing,
Yeah.
because if I'm off in the number, well, you're asking me to give you a number without seeing. Can you appraise a home without seeing? So there's a professional that is her business, you cannot do it.
Yeah,
Every home is different.
different.
Any of that impactful information, I feel like it's important to do it face to face. You know, you don't want to miss on either end. If you give them a low ballpark, and they're talking to other agents on the phone shooting out higher ballparks, then they may not, you know, ever have you come out. If you give them a high ballpark, then when you go out to that listing appointment, it doesn't matter how many comps you pulled. If you come in with a lower number, good luck, because they have that higher number already set in, you know, in
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, no, it's true. Any questions about that?
Well, you're not even getting a chance to put yourself in the running and explain your value proposition that could win that listing over somebody else who's in the same target even, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think you guys all would agree that a lot of times within the first 5 to 10 minutes of a listing appointment, they just want to know, hey, what can you sell this house for? And, you know, so if you're not able, like Brett said, to be able to, you know, give them everything that you bring to the table and provide that value proposition and your why is behind that number, yeah, you're just really, you know, kind of giving them an empty number. You can't, you know.
It's so true. Well, let me be that high D on the phone. We know what that is, right? And they say only 3% of the public. And Matt just said to me, and thank you for sharing that, Matt, that, you know, hey, let me ask you this, is the house down the street from you, is it identical to yours? No, it's not, Matt. But I've talked to 3 other agents, and they told me, because I told them that I had a pool and I had a new roof and I had this, that they gave me a range from 350 to 360. That's all I want to know. Okay?
And so you can tell them, you already know
Yeah.
where it's gonna be, so, you know, I can give you a
What do
opinion that
you
might
need
be a
for
little
it?
bit different, but you already know the range where it's gonna be, so
Yeah.
you already had 3 people tell you.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what I can do for you that's different from the rest of the
Okay.
agents.
Well, David, let me ask you, did those 3 agents see your home?
No.
Then I'd be cautious to settle on that number.
Yeah.
Now, would you like to meet at 4 o'clock today, or is 3 better?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, go for the close, get the appointment. That's the point. And I wasn't trying to trick anybody, but that's it. That's the point. Get the appointment.
Cause he's exactly right, if those other people were not savvy enough and they provided that number over the phone, they'd be underselling that seller by 20, 30, 40,000, who knows?
Or wait a minute, did they say 340 to 350? I think it's 351. Would you like me to see the document?
The price is right.
Or I could tell you it's worth 360.
Because that's what they're doing.
Yeah, right? You know, you're gonna list your home because I didn't see it, sight unseen. I'm gonna tell you it's worth 375. No, you want the best information
The
possible.
only home I could ever see an exception if it's in a brand new construction in a cookie cutter
Yeah.
community that is the exact same lot, same floor plan, you know, same finishes, then you can. But
And
still, I wanna get in front of them so I can build a relationship.
Yeah.
But Matt, to that point, because I was thinking along those lines too.
That's it.
But even then, do you really know that it's the same finishes? And it could be a little bit different, right? Because typically that seller's gonna be, oh yeah, it's exactly like.
I
the
have
next
one
door.
investor right now, and they're doing multiple, and there's 2 floors, that's it.
But I'm thinking like in a gated
Oh,
community.
yeah, no, you don't,
Yeah.
you don't.
So, and the exception that I have is I'm very blessed. A lot of my business is either referral or repeat business. So a lot of these people that I'm doing listings for right now, I've been in their house over and over, and I know them, and I know that they're not shopping other agents, and then I have no problem saying, yeah, you know, I'm familiar with your house, let me pull up some comps, and I'll call it back.
Yeah.
But those are like almost fun kind of listeners you get them.
Yeah. You still try to avoid talking about it over the phone, so the whole
Well, a
basis.
lot of mine are out of town, so.
Yeah. Kirk, you've had some great luck. What's your secret?
You know, some of it's really getting in front of people.
Yeah.
That's one of the key things.
Yeah.
I know we moved down from the subject of the 90, you know, the ratios and stuff. Something else I'll also point out is days on the market for my listings.
Yeah.
And show
Yeah,
them
days
that.
on market, right? Your analyst gives you that, right?
Yeah, and that kind of goes with, hey, if, you know, 95, 96%, less than 30 days.
Yeah.
You know, point that out. But getting in front of people and is the most important thing.
All right.
That days on market is key to your price though, right? Cause like Matt said, what your ratio shows that you're pricing right the first time. If you don't price it right off the bat, your days on market is way up.
And that's why I didn't use the list to sold ratio, because those can be skewed with, you know, somebody held it on market till the market shifted 5 years later or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I used that original price ratio, and I did check and make sure that nobody had like you know, a 700-day average or anything like that before, you know.
So, you know, let's move on from that, because the fact about it, with these high ratios, and I'll go right to Ashley for a second, because I'm not picking on anybody, but I want everybody to have their input. But now it's time to price the property. You've got the appointment, and before we talk about comps, I want to talk about the white elephant in the room that I'm used to from any other part of the country except for here, is we did our listing presentations, our pricing presentations in 2 appointments. I understand you all do it here in 1 appointment. Does everybody do 1 appointment or 2 appointments?
One.
One.
I quite
Two.
often do too.
It's been 2 here and there.
Here, depending upon the home. So it does vary, okay?
How many agents did you have where you were?
How many agents? 435 in the board.
That's got something to do with it.
Yeah, but, and so, like, a lot of the people that I think that really like the 2 appointment thing are the older people, like,
Yeah.
because it's really showing that you care. You go out and you look at their house, and
True.
then you go back to your office after you've seen their place. And older people, like, I deal with a lot of seniors, and they
Yeah.
really feel you care if you do it in the 2
That's true.
So.
That's true. Even though you might know the price, right?
Exactly. I have most of the time I do, but I still.
Yeah.
Well, I'll set the appointment right there. Like, let me come back tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. I'll have all the numbers. I can show them to you. And
So let me just hit you guys with this. I'm from Massachusetts, right? I come down here, I buy a home, a year later, I want to sell it. And I've sold and bought and sold property in Massachusetts over and over again. And the real estate agent came to my home first to collect information, go back and bring a market analysis out. And I'm just on the phone with you. I say, hey, listen, I'd like the property to list my home. Could you come over and take a look at it? And I'm expecting you to come over to take a look at it. And you bring a pricing presentation. And I might say to you, so I guess I didn't understand the way you guys do business down here. So I thought we were just here to introduce ourselves. You brought me a market analysis from it. How can you give me a market analysis on my home when you haven't even seen it before? Somebody?
Here, I'll chime in. So that's how we do ours in two steps,
Yeah.
for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Even if it's a house that, like Vicki, we've been very fortunate and blessed that a lot of our business is repeat business and referrals.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
even customers where we sold them the house, whether it's a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and they think we know the house, I'll even tell them, they'll be like, well, we just did this, and this, and I said, well, I'm still gonna come by and see it and
Yeah.
refresh their memory. It's not only to see the features and the updates they've done to add that to our analysis, it's
Yeah.
also to build a rapport with the seller.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't ask that because there's no right or wrong answer to this, guys. There really isn't. It depends upon who you're talking to on the other end of the phone, depends upon the credibility that you have in the marketplace. I mean, I might go as far as saying that, you know, somebody like on Matt's team, you'd be lucky to get their business. So you're gonna listen to them no matter what. And let's be honest, down here in Florida, it's a little easier to comp houses in a community that almost look alike than in Massachusetts, where I could have $1 million house in a shack and a $600,000 house and it was just crazy in there. So.
We get
That's
that.
similar here.
Yeah.
Very similar here.
No.
Is that
Yeah.
Katie?
Here's the thing, this isn't a black and white yes or no. The thing, there's many appointments that I'm gonna go into and you're saying, hey, I'm used to this. When I start interacting with you and I start checking the home out, Yes, I've got my presentation ready, but I may very well say, fantastic, now I have everything I need, and,
Yeah.
you know, let's set a point, you know, this afternoon or tomorrow.
Gotcha.
And it turns into it too.
Yeah.
So-
If you find out you're way off, right?
Yeah.
Well, or
Sure.
there's things there that the county didn't have, I couldn't see, or they bought it 3 years, and they've done a lot of updates.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can very easily turn into that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think sometimes you can identify how the, you know, having the conversation with the seller on the phone of whether you need to bring the numbers
Yeah.
over or not.
Yeah.
I've brought numbers over just in case where I didn't know, and I didn't whip them out.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Because I got to the house and I'm like, I'm not showing them this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, right, that's a great conversation, because you're all gonna come across that, and I think it's great to know that even though you might be prepared for it, you might have to just take a step back and go, you know what, I might have to reevaluate this.
Sure.
To help you out, right? So, great question, so let's get to, well, let me ask Mary Nancy a question. Did I say Mary earlier?
You did.
But it's Nancy.
Yes, it is.
It's Nancy Milback.
That's all right.
That's two, David. Hard one you're out.
I'm gonna get the wrong from now on. So Nancy, as an appraiser, you don't put a value, do you have an idea of the value of the home before you go see it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, so this discussion's warranted, right? So you pretty much know, but you're going there to confirm your information?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a way. I was a realtor for 20 years before I was an appraiser.
Ah.
So
Oh.
it's very helpful.
So you know how
for
their
me.
minds think.
Well, you might think different than I did 20 years ago. I don't know. I've been appraising 20 years now. So, you know, I really just go there to look.
Yeah.
You know, just to look around. But I figure the numbers out when I get back.
Yeah.
When I get home.
You do the math.
Because sometimes it's very, very tight and you just can't.
Well, in your case, right?
Sometimes very difficult.
Is any, you know, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to ask Nancy, anybody here have a question for Nancy? Because she's in the field of appraisal.
I do right now, because as long as I've known you and known what a great appraiser you are, I don't think I realized that you had the real estate prior experience.
No, I don't
So-
say much about it.
Yeah, so how is the process the same or different between a CMA and your certified appraisal?
Well, I mean, I have so many realtors call me and ask me, how much should I adjust for this and how much should I adjust for that? And I tell them what I do, but it's not necessarily what you'll do, because you're out there with the seller and you're out there with buyers. It's different. I look at things different than you do. Like if you're trying to price a house with a brand new kitchen that just cost them $40,000, they want that 40 back, right? Well, the most I can do is 50%, if that.
Oh.
No,
Oh.
because.
That's just a pain in the ass, right?
Sorry.
As you go
I mean,
down.
I have to follow the payment guidelines. Now, there's no book that says you have to do this, and this, but we do have a limit, and that's 10% on a line, so it's 10% of that sales price. So if your house is 300,000, I can never adjust more than 30,000 on the line, no matter.
On any line.
Any line,
Yeah.
no matter what it is. And you don't necessarily want to adjust that much because it raises questions for the
Yeah.
bank, you know?
As an ex-underwriter,
Excellent.
I used to underwrite mortgages, I mean, like, I'm pretty cognizant of all of that. And one of the things that I tell my customers is like, they'll say, well, what's it gonna appraise for? And I say, I don't know, I'm not an appraiser, that's not my job. My job is to get you in the ballpark where people are gonna look at it and the market's gonna determine the price, and then the appraiser just needs to substantiate that.
Right.
So I'm gonna start out looking at what has sold to make sure I'm in the ballpark and that it'll appraise.
All right.
Wasn't that back when they
I
had
have a
the
question
appraisal on
about
stone
more
tablets?
the
Let's
subject.
go.
Oh,
Okay.
back it.
Wait, we have a guest in the back of the room.
He's got jokes.
He's got. Maggie, what was your
Yeah.
question?
Because he never sees me.
A lot of my customers always ask me about the more subjective ends, like, well, I built berms, or the type of kitchen appliances, or there seems to be so many subjective aspects which really aren't included in the appraisal at all, correct? I
No.
mean, the kind of appliance, it can be stainless, but the kind of, or if it's the top of the line, there's no place to adjust for that, right?
We don't adjust for those.
So there seems to me a lot of subjective, in the eyes of the seller, they're thinking
Yeah.
that what they have is
Yeah.
so great, but I say to them, but there's no criteria for
So
that.
you guys got, I know you got a great script for this.
I just wanna jump,
Yeah.
can I
You're not gonna change the subject, are you?
No, I'm not. But here's my thing, like, I used to like spend 3 or 4 hours trying to come up with the price, and I would pick out my comps, and I would sit there and write adjustments on each piece of paper, like this one has a new kitchen, this one doesn't. But I have found that I can do the whole thing in 15 minutes and forget all the adjustments, just look for comps that are similar, look for comps that have upgraded kitchens or upgraded bathrooms, and then if you're not finding any comps that are as nice as yours, then maybe you go to the average to high side, or, you know, if you get there and it's a dump, then you go be on the lower end of average. But I don't spend all that time, I don't do adjustments, I just get them in the ballpark.
Gianna, I'm gonna get to you in a second, because I wanna mention something here. What you just said, from a mathematical perspective, a 50% adjustment or 10% on any line, what do you guys say as agents, what do you say to customers that say, because we get it all the time, dude, I just put in a $15,000 hardwood floor in that room, I need to get that money back. Anybody?
I can bring them article after article that says you're not gonna get dollar for dollar on your improvements, and you can actually show them, like, new flooring, you might get X percentage, or for a new kitchen or a bathroom remodel, or whatever it is you're doing, but again, it's like, you know, my comment would be, well, look at all these 3 houses that I picked as comps for yours, they also had all new floors, so they're comparable to yours. They may not have hardwood, they may have the, you know, wood grain tile, but they still all have new upgraded floors.
And just to take that a step further, I mean, my first response would be, well, why did you replace the floors? What was there before? Because normally it's because the tile was cracked, it was a hot mess, and they didn't like it, so no buyers would have wanted it. And all they really did was put in a flooring that's going to be acceptable to them and the next buyer.
Sometimes we have to remind people that the reason they spent all that money on something in their home was for the enjoyment for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And can somebody share, you know, that, and this is not a script practice, but can somebody share how that might go with somebody?
Well, here, I'll chime in. So that's one of the reasons why I love doing the 2 listing appointments, because I tell them not to do anything. Don't spend money, don't do any updates, don't do anything. I would like to see the house first, because then I get there and they're like, well, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna paint this, and we're gonna replace this floor. Tell them not to.
Yeah.
I said, because for that very reason, they put in $50,000 floor or whatever it is, so the buyer's not gonna have the same taste that you're gonna have.
Yeah.
So if there's a crack in the tile or the carpet's kinda gross, let's shampoo it, get it out the best we can, and we can always offer a credit towards something for the buyer for something that they do want. So now you're taking something that's negative and you're making it positive for the next buyer. So now it's an asset to them. It's like, oh, I don't have to spend $1,000, you know, an extra $1,000 on flooring, because that's something they'll get back in closing. So just because our goal is to make our seller the most amount of money. So without them having to spend a lot of money beforehand, so.
It's interesting, right?
That we do.
The consumer public out there understands that just about everything they buy in this world depreciates the second they make the purchase, except for the things they put in their home.
Well, I think part of what goes along with that is that everybody can redo their house now by watching HGTV.
Yeah.
And in those shows, miraculously, they get that money back.
Yeah,
Right?
Well, in a lot of cases you will. I mean, we have many that we go in and that's one thing that we help them with.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a renovation background
Yeah.
and that's one thing that we can help them. But I need to see it, like Ashley said, I wanna see it first, cause there's some things, I'm all about the ROI.
Yeah.
You know, the
Return on
return on your
investment.
investment. So there's some things that are gonna benefit and there's some that are not.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that and then we lay it out both ways.
It's a conversation, right? Sure.
Well, 2 things, but first thing that popped up is, I don't stop too many people from painting.
Yeah.
If they wanna do some painting inside, and it's like, that'd be a good idea.
I wanna paint it red.
Which is, and then, you would have that conversation, you wanna go neutral colors.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask Nancy was, as far as the prices go, is pools.
Pools? Did you say
Pools.
pools?
Yeah. Pools.
Swimming
Like
pools.
pools in Port Charlotte, a pool that needs marsiding, or, what, is there a ballpark $15,000 for a pool? But I know there's pools, brand new pools, $50,000, $70,000.
Right.
I'm just trying to, dependent. if you have an answer on.
Well, I've done a lot of review work, a lot of review appraisals as well, and I seem to think that, just a run-of-the-mill number for an average pool on a home that was built in the 80s is 15,000.
Right.
Doesn't mean that's right, you can move that.
Mhm.
When I'm in PGI, it's a lot more than that.
Mhm.
And if the house is new, so a lot of times there's not, comps that are the same age, and I have to go maybe 15 years difference.
Mhm.
So if I'm doing a newer house, I'll do a lot heavier adjustment for that new pool.
Yeah.
If I'm using a house.
We appreciate that, thank you.
From pool guy. If I'm doing a brand new construction, that pool, I know it just costs 50,000, 60,000.
Yeah.
And if I have to use a house that's 10 years old, I'm not gonna give them the same
Right,
amount that I would.
right. And that-
It just depends.
Right, and I heard that 15,000 number when I first got into real estate, and I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to see if anything's really kinda.
Let me just throw something at you, Kurt. Find like a house and do a CMA on it as if it had a pool, and then do a CMA on it without a pool.
Yes,
Correct.
and see
And
what's
you're not
going
gonna,
on.
the
Right.
difference isn't gonna be near as much as you expect it to be, I mean,
Or the
it's
seller
just-
expects it to be.
I
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
but
And
the seller doesn't know that you're looking
Yeah.
at houses without pools, like
Right.
if you do it that way, but
Right.
the difference is not that great.
Right, right. That's like if you got a house and it's got the lot next door.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use comps, you're not gonna find too many of those comps, but you've got a few lots
You mean my
separately.
$5,000 lot doesn't add $20,000?
I'd like to comment on both of those subjects, the additional lot and the additional pool. At least in my opinion, it's not what the seller paid for it or what the value of that, the pool or the lot is, by itself. It's more about what that value is to a potential buyer of having a pool home in a hot state of Florida versus not, or our northern buyers from PA, New York, Michigan that are used to larger properties, 3, 5, 10, 20 acres, coming down here with these postage stamp lots, and how much it means to them to get a double lot or a triple lot. Yeah, to me, it's more about the value to the buyer and not breaking down the individual intricacies of each home. It's the grand picture of it all.
Right? And we don't know what the value is to the buyer. Gianna?
I had two things. One, I really like what Vicky said about saying, like, I'm not here to do an appraisal, I'm here to put you in the ballpark for the market, because our goal really is to bring people in, it's not to do an appraisal, right? So we know that we price a house at $300,000 that's really gonna sell at $250,000. Like, we know that there's a difference in those price ranges too, right? Like, nobody who's looking for a $350,000 house is looking in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. So we know where to put houses that way too, and that's, I think, where we need to think instead of, like, what we're saying, we need to stay in our own lanes,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of the issue that I think a lot of agents have. And then, I had a question for you, Nancy. How often do you go into a house with an idea of what the appraisal is gonna come in at and are just like, oh, completely, like, you have to kind of start over?
Not too often, because most of the houses are listed online, so I
Right.
can see your interior photos.
Right.
And lately, everybody's been posting 30 photos,
We can
50
do 100,
photos.
we can do
50
100
photos.
now.
I'm going through each photo, so I can see most of it. There's always a range, and we can't put in a
Right.
range on the appraisal. So if I think it's worth 3, it could be from 290 to 310, 315. So, I look at the price that they're buying it for, and I can, go within that range. There's no exact number, although there is on the appraisal.
Right.
There still isn't. There's always a little bit of range that you can go up and down.
All right, let me go ahead.
Actually, just one thing on the appraisals, I'm on the appraisal valuation committee at NAR, or this past year I was, and there's so much going on with appraisals right now, and with all the artificial intelligence and everything, they can actually, scan for words in the descriptions, or they'll know that it's granite, or that it's got new top floors, or whatever it is. And also, the move away from doing appraisals, and there's so much other stuff going on with appraisals, like depending on LTV and all that.
Did
good
you just
stuff.
tell Nancy she's out of work?
No.
Did you just tell her she's out of a job?
She's still a real estate
Thank you.
agent.
Is that real estate agent, is that realtor license affiliated still?
Are you
New
hearing
York.
that in the field too? I mean, there's so much talk about it when you're at NAR about all the stuff that Fannie and Freddie are doing, and they can do with artificial intelligence and all this other stuff, and I don't think we're gonna become a Zillow, but.
Well, I really can't answer that. I don't know. 50% of my work is referrals from you guys.
There you go. Yeah.
It's pre-listing appraisals, somebody
You're welcome.
passed away.
You're welcome.
divorces, whatever the case may be. That's 50% of my work now.
Well,
And I prefer that.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask her, those pre-listing appraisals, of how common that is for you, because I've
Pretty
had.
common.
Yeah, I've
Pretty
had
common.
situations where I've had the seller get an appraisal before we list.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever hear that concept before? Getting an appraiser, getting an actual paid-for appraisal before the property is listed.
Yeah.
Who's done it and had success with it?
I've done it, I haven't had success.
You haven't had
Well,
success?
He wanted to list it for $7.99, and I said it's not worth $7.99, you have to get an appraisal, came in at $7. And the lowest he ever went was $7.49, and it's still on the market. It expired and
Okay.
it's still there.
I mean, I'll just say something, now it expired with another agent, right?
Oh, it's me.
With you?
Yeah.
Okay, so that, for what it's worth, would have been a scenario where I never would have taken that list.
I agree.
100%.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that in my listing appointment, one of the, there's a couple, precedents that I set right from the very beginning, and one of those is basically the potential outcomes from that listing appointment, one of which is I don't take the listing. For me, my priority is to do an A+ job for my customers, provide them with extraordinary service, and have them be my biggest cheerleaders after the fact. So if I take a listing that's overpriced and it sits on the market and then ultimately expires or has to suffer multiple price reductions far below what I told them I could sell it at, I have not fulfilled my goal that, I just expressed. So I just wouldn't have taken the listing, and then I would have let it expire with another agent, came back at that point and said, let's list it for what I recommended the first time around.
Exactly, I'd much rather have it after it's come off.
Yeah, well, it
Which
was my
brings-
second,
And
Listing,
and
let
let me
It
say,
was from it was
We've
the
all
other
done it.
house.
Yes.
by-
I've done it. I've done it.
My first listing.
Yes.
I get it.
He did.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, when we've all been there.
Yes,
Oh,
not
Oh,
to
I
fault
wouldn't
you.
do it now.
Been there,
I wouldn't
done
do it
that.
now.
Learn
I have a
from it.
rule.
Good learn, yeah.
When I do my market analysis and I come up with a price, I won't go over 5% over that. If they wanna go over that, I'll
Yeah.
send them down the road. And my
So-
question to them at that point is, do you wanna list it or do you wanna sell it? Because if
Exactly.
you just wanna list it,
Yep.
then I can give you a whole bunch of agents that will overprice it, but if you wanna list it to sell, then this is where you need to be, and if they wanna go more than 5%, I won't
Yeah.
do it.
So let me just be clear for our new agents that might be watching or just listening right now is not only are these guys masters of their craft from their pricing strategy, they do great research and forensic analysis of the sale of the home. Their ratios aren't fantastic because of just that. Sometimes they just don't take the listing. Sometimes you just have to say no. Otherwise, those percentages could be way off if you took every listing.
Yeah, let's not look at my percentages, years ago.
Years ago, right?
No.
Years ago?
But
Because of that right there,
Yeah.
because of course we want it, you want the listing, are you kidding me, you're excited, and
Right.
so.
So
You wanna-
that brings a question up for me, because what I was already thinking was, and this has happened to us, and even a lot recently, we don't take it because we, like Vicky said, we wanna sell it, not just list it, right? So we don't take it. The guy who promises more does, and we track them, we pay attention to them,
Yep.
and they end up selling for less than what we told them originally.
And you
Right?
won't call them and say,
And so, yeah, you mean you want to, but it's frustrating because you're like, okay, well, maybe the next one I'll just take it and beat them up.
Okay,
So that's what I wanna hear your input on.
we've had 3 recently that's come back around, and their first comment was, I appreciate your honesty. You was really honest with me, you're my guy.
What's they understand?
Well, yeah, because he went through 6 months of, and because this one told him 50,000, the number he wanted to hear.
Sure.
And so I would rather be in that position instead of sit there and you say beat them to, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
To have those come over and over.
But
and
I'm talking
over.
about not ones that just expire, I'm talking about ones that actually sell for less than
Right.
what you told them.
And you're gonna miss some of
originally.
those, because they do stay with them and it hurts, it stings,
It does.
you're like, oh. So,
But so you're still in the mindset then it's.
well, I'm sorry,
It's no.
well, there's other options to it.
I think you have to, each of us has to decide what our why is and our philosophy and stick to that, so I get what you're saying, it stinks to lose out on that sale and that commission, but on the other end of things, how much time did you free up for other customers who were more
Great.
realistic right now today, right? And then on the other end of things, like you said, how much beating up did that agent have to do? You know, how many bad or rough conversations happen between that seller and that agent that seller is now telling their brother, sister, cousin, neighbor, blah, 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 hey, I used this agent, yes, I sold the home
Yeah, you won by
eventually.
selling, but what kind of relationship?
Right, right.
Can I ask, does anybody put in their listing agreement that if you don't have offers in 2 weeks, you'll
Great question.
automatically
That's a great question.
reduce
That's
it?
Let's hear your
That's what I meant
comment.
by other options, yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I think
no
it's a
question.
Yeah,
great idea.
if, you know, when you said 5%, well, the other option there is say, okay, we will list at this, but at this date, we're gonna make the reduction to this.
So it is
Don't
the
wait.
practice of yours. You put in automatic price reductions in the contract to happen on a date.
I'm not gonna say every time.
Not every time.
Correct, but yes.
You have that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's how you're able to capture that one that you're not comfortable taking.
Yeah.
Right.
And still be able
Right.
to take
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to call them up and say, you know, I've been thinking about it.
Well, now, we still, I
Yeah.
call, I
Yeah.
don't just make the change because I just think.
It's a
that's-
reminder, hey, this is Matt, this is a
And
reminder.
that's a great point, that's a customer service issue.
Yeah, I think that's, if all of a sudden, oh, today's the 6th, I'm
Yeah.
dropping this baby.
Yeah,
You know?
and then they call you because they saw it on Zillow.
Right.
There's one in Deep Creek right now, the agent's dropping it $100 a week, you can watch.
Oh, okay, please, do not do that.
When they do that,
Don't fall in that
it's
trap.
unknown.
I've seen them do the 100 down,
Oh,
100
it
down,
doesn't
and then 100 up, and then
Yeah.
200.
Oh.
Can I ask you, Matt, in those circumstances where you've implemented that into the contract and that mark came, have you had times where you then got pushback from the seller, and if so, how did you handle that?
Absolutely, and I take them back to the original conversation. The ones that I'm willing to do that, it's the ones that say, well, I just want to try it.
Oh, yeah.
This,
Right. Oh, they
such
want
and
to.
such told me, this agent told me that it's this, you know, I really like you, I like, you know, what you provide, but I want that number, and if I know that it's not the correct number, that would be a case that I would do that. And yeah, sometimes it is, and actually I had one that we parted ways, because obviously I'm not gonna force it just because it says that.
Right.
You hope that we both remember that conversation initially, and now's the time to make that move, but sometimes it goes bad.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, somebody, I just was watching online, somebody called that person the needle in the haystack buyer. That there's just gonna be some magical person who has no idea what they're doing and they're just gonna fall for that higher price.
And in
Well,
this day and age with the technology,
I have a pet unicorn too.
So
people are so informed.
Let's talk about that. So you do get lucky. Somebody does come along
There's no luck.
and is willing to pay whatever the seller's willing to
Appraiser.
ask. And now the appraiser comes in.
Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna have the conversation, you know, one, we need a cash buyer.
Yeah.
Or two, someone that does not want appraisal contingency, or is willing to, you know,
Overpay.
put some skin in it.
Yeah.
Well,
Bring money to the table.
The unicorn, the unicorn buyer, right? Go ahead, Jim.
Do you guys,
no.
maybe you covered this, do you guys check out Zillow before you go and listen?
I was just gonna mention that, and
I'm sorry, who?
There's a way you can use it to your advantage, 'cause a lot of times
Zillow.
Zillow is low, and you can go in and. with the
Redfin's
price
always
say-
high, Zillow and Realtor.com or, you know, yeah. Here's the thing with that, Jim. So the CEO to Zillow a couple years ago on the morning show made the comment directly from him that on average we can be 30% off one way or the
Well,
other.
so he sold his own house and it was off 40%.
There you go.
Yeah.
So.
But you wanna know
His
that number.
40%
But you need to
Yeah.
know it before you go in.
Because they know it.
They
Oh, yeah, they know.
And then you
They
can
know.
figure out how to use that to your advantage.
All right, so we've got an appraiser here on the panel, but yet you do have a buyer that's willing to pay more, or maybe you just don't know and the appraisal comes in lower. Not to go down that bunny trail, but this is a discussion you're having with your seller up front. We might find a buyer, but there could be an appraisal issue,
Absolutely.
right?
And it can be common at this time of the market. So we
Yeah.
have that conversation.
Well, and then, so I always start out with like, so if the appraiser comes in low, you know, and that's a contingency, are you gonna be willing to drop the price at that point? Because if you're not, then we're wasting our time.
Well, the same thing's true like on FHA and VA, especially when they wanna add closing costs to the deal.
That's when that
Have that
conversation is more.
conversation.
Yeah.
You
Well,
ever see that-
FHAs, I try to price, if I know the house is an FHA house, I try to price it on the low end, so we have
Okay,
wiggle
please
room to
ask.
do that.
Go ahead, Matt, ask a question.
My question, because I get this conversation a lot, so I'm sure others do. My roof and my AC is only a year old. The roof and the AC is only a year old. What, on your
I
side?
actually get credit for that.
And what does that credit look like?
Are
Versus
we
one
talking
that's.
average house?
Yeah.
We're talking average house?
2,000 square foot average house,
Yeah,
5,300.
okay. Is it an asphalt?
Yeah, just
regular
shingle.
roof? Okay.
Yeah.
Because what did that cost?
Right, around 10 now. Yeah.
I mean, it's limited, but on a roof, I would do $3,000.
Okay. And
Absolutely.
AC?
If it was new, 3 or 4 on the AC as well.
Okay, that helps a lot
If
because
it's new, yeah.
I get that question a lot versus,
So how much you depreciate it for a year or two more?
well, sure, because here, in the listing of what they're saying, I just spent 10,000 on the
Yeah.
roof and I spent 6,000 on that, so I want an extra 16,000.
Right.
So I'm having to have that conversation, so that's
Yeah.
why.
Depreciation
It
cost.
doesn't work that way, but it'd be very helpful if your listing does have the roof or
And-
new, put it in the comments. Because
Yeah.
then when I
Right.
go to
Great point.
comp it with somebody else, I don't know if they have a new roof or not. So a lot of times I won't make an adjustment unless I
Do you
know
not
for
look at
sure.
permits?
And is,
You don't look at permits to see what's
No.
on.
What else, can you see attachments?
Yes.
Seller's disclosure,
Yes.
statutes.
Yes.
so my conversation with the seller in that regard is, one, yes, we are gonna get some value.
Yes.
But also, it's gonna be a difference if there's 3 that they're narrowed down to, that one's gonna be more appealing because they know that they have another 12 to 15 years before they have to do this.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's gonna help them choose this one over that.
And before knowing what Nancy just said, that's what we use too, because it's gonna be the deciding factor. If you've got 2 or 3 that are pretty much apples to apples, we'll take the new equipment.
Absolutely.
And please don't put in MLS that it's a newer roof if it's 8 years old.
Yeah, you're already, you're
Yeah.
half blind.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, new roof after Charlie,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Right, new roof
Newer.
after Charlie.
Newer.
Yeah, that worked for about 2 years, so those days are gone.
I just want to ask Nancy this question. I'm not looking for a yes or no. I'm not asking if you use them. Is it appreciated when an agent will leave some comps
Yes.
on the kitchen table?
Yes. Because I always look to see if we pick the same ones.
Gotcha.
But you don't,
It's more of a game for me. I
Yeah,
want- I
don't
want to
take
see
it-
what you're
sure.
thinking.
You don't take it
Yeah,
offensive.
yeah, you don't take it offensively like somebody's trying to tell you how to do your job.
No.
And there could be one that you missed.
Yes.
Vice versa.
Absolutely.
Or the one you
Absolutely.
use might have become too old for her
Oh.
to use it,
Right.
or yours
But
might
there
have
are
been 2
appraisers
miles
that
away
do.
and she
I
has to
know.
stay
And I
with
know
you.
that.
Yeah, and
that's
we've run into
ridiculous.
it.
One point to that, I had a property here recently and there wasn't a lot of comps, it was unique. One of the homes across the street was a private sale. And the appraiser did not know about it and hadn't used it, and so that was, always look, if you have one that's really tough, go the extra mile to check the county site to see if there's been a transaction that could really help.
You really can't use that.
So an appraiser just.
Because you don't know if it's arm's length, is that why?
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so can we talk about it, Nancy? Can I speak
Yeah.
for you for a second? Because you're a very soft speaker. You said you're from New York?
You're very loud. Oh,
I'm from Boston, man.
That's why.
I need to be
All
heard.
right.
Those annoying Pats fans.
You know, I got Smart Talk in my car.
Oh.
Ever seen commercials?
Yes,
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Stay on past days.
So here's the thing, back to what Nancy was just saying, is, because there's a question on here that's been asked a lot, what source of comps do you use? Here's a private sale that might be the perfect comp, but you don't know if it's an arm's length transaction. Does everybody know what an arm's length, can we explain what an arm's length transaction is?
It's not within the family, it's not a deal where they're trying to launder a bunch of money from Russia.
Conspiracy man.
Yes.
That's right. Can we get Nancy's definition?
Okay, so the answer is you can't use private sales, but what do you guys use for source of comps?
Yeah.
MLS.
Absolutely.
I only leave the MLS if I'm doing something and I can't find
If I
comps in it.
can't-
It'd be something like maybe Bimini Bay Club or the Oaks or condos where they're all cookie cutter.
So let me tell you what I learned at Fannie Mae School many, many years ago when I worked for Fannie Mae Direct, was that, and I'm going in a different direction here from you, because you're an appraiser, you hear 3 miles, 3 months, 3 comps was our restrictions. What's the truth and what can you guys do? From an appraisal standpoint, how far do you got?
I go up to 10 miles.
10 miles.
It depends on what we've got.
Yeah.
We have new
But Vandy's-
construction going on in Port Charlotte that people are paying $500 and $600 for.
Yeah.
Torrington, Strasburg, those streets.
Yeah.
There's no comps here.
Right.
I have to go out to 33981.
But the rule of thumb, isn't it a mile, and if you go beyond a mile, you have to explain it?
What was that?
Isn't it the rule of thumb a mile, and if you go beyond a mile, you have to explain why you did that in your?
If you have comps within a mile, you have to use them. If you don't, that's when you can go outside.
Right, but
And 10
explain.
miles, I'm talking about new construction problem or rural.
Rural.
Yeah, it's good to know.
But I thought it was.
Is there any rule of thumb after the mile though, or can you go as far as you want? I mean, within reason, obviously.
have
Would it
to
be the
use-
10 miles then?
You have, no, that's for rural.
Okay.
That's rural. You have to use the ones that are closest possible if you're comparable.
So you would start
You
with a
go
mile,
out
and then a
from
mile,
there.
a quarter mile, and a half.
Locations, yes.
Okay.
Always the most
So you just
important.
slowly go out incrementally?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So what's your thoughts on the sole data entry only listings that get put into the MLS?
Well, I hate them.
There's an honest answer.
Can you use?
Sometimes I've called the agents on them, put a few pictures out, give me some information, you've got it out there. I see now in the new constructions, a lot of brokers are putting them out there saying, this was just the price of the house, the build, but the land was extra.
Yeah, that's not the way, you're supposed to put the land in there.
Right.
But you can't because that's not the closed price.
No, you
because
talk to the
buyer
MLS,
already-
they'll tell you how to do it.
Then you have to explain it in the comments, you
Right.
have to do something, because it won't match the public records.
That would require more data entry.
Come on,
the
put some
agent's part.
comments
The
on
builder
there.
said it wouldn't be in public records, it would just be the vacant land sale in public records.
I know, they're hard, it's hard
That's
to do
why
that.
it's important to put it in there, because if it's in there, they might be able to use it if they have enough information to use it. Am I correct?
Yes, and I have actually gone to some of the local builders and asked them about some of the houses because I was at a loss for comps. And the bank will take, if I put the builder in, the name, the phone number, I put all the info in where I got it from, they will take that.
So Nancy, that's interesting. You're saying, so new construction in that like section 50 area, right? To find something comparable, you're going all the way out South Gulf Cove on the interior lots.
I have, yes.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
there's nothing here.
Yeah.
I can't say, I can't do it. Only once in 20 years have I said, I can't do this one.
Okay, so what does that look like?
I
What
don't
does the
remember.
one look?
It was up in New York. I
Oh,
don't
okay,
remember
I got you.
anymore,
All right.
but I do remember declining it, yeah.
Let me ask the panel, have you ever, when you're sitting down on a pricing strategy conversation with a seller, have you ever asked, and they're just, hey, I'm telling you, the other 2 agents just told me that it was worth 30 grand. Do you ever ask to see the other analysis? No, you ever, have you?
Yeah.
No?
Do you wanna hear the weirdest one I ever had? Was one that, I was asked just to, my orange grove, I got this orange grove, and I was asked to do a CMA just on the house and the land it was sitting on, which was roughly 1.5 acres to 2 acres. And I was coming up around 250, 260, and the attorney that was handling the estate said, well, I have an agent that told this lady it's worth 987,000. And it's like, I had 2 other agents look at it, I didn't tell them what I came up with, and I had them look at it independently, and they were both within like 5,000 of what I was at.
Yeah.
So I don't know where what the other agent was smoking, but my seller had these really high expectations. They think they're gonna get $1 million for a $250,000 house.
Was it a producing orange grove?
Well, this
I
was
just went
just-
through
this
one
was
like that.
just the
It's
house.
producing, I sell to local farmers. No, that's not the same thing.
No, and mine is not, mine's abandoned, but I was just doing the house, I wasn't doing the grove, I was just doing the house, and.
Do you have a question? No? You were gonna ask.
I have a
I was gonna ask you a
question.
question. What was the question I was gonna ask?
No, let me, wait a minute,
Wait
let me
a
get my
minute,
crystal
now.
ball.
Yeah.
I have one. What do you guys do when you get into a property, and how do you handle this with the seller? Because that's the major issue. When you get into a property and you find all kinds of unpermitted rooms,
Oh, good question.
right? Because I want you to factor this space, Matt. I want you to factor this space, but it's all unpermitted work.
I mean, I'm speaking, I guess, from a little lack of experience in that, because I haven't had a whole lot of that, but I can tell you what I would do. I wouldn't take that listing until the permits were cleared up. A lot of, especially, some of the newer agents that haven't gotten to the point where they're leveraging time yet, time is such a constraint, and to wrap myself up in a listing for however long, take the money for marketing, advertising, all that stuff, get it on the market, find a buyer, and then just hit a wall approaching closing due to all this unpermitted stuff, I'm just not interested. So that would be my perspective. I want to finish.
I want to hear the polar opposite.
Oh, I'll take every one of those listings.
Absolutely.
The first
When it's happened to me, I've been more
They're
around the
everywhere.
bill,
I mean,
so what do you do?
please let me know if you come across.
They'll pay a handsome referral fee.
I love it. All right, we got some referrals here. I'm gonna have the conversation of what we're gonna encounter. Nancy's gonna say, there's no way I can use this space. It's, well, it's under air. I took the doors out and I insulated it myself, and my buddy even ran some ductwork at it.
Right.
No. So we're gonna have that conversation. We've had numerous where they've closed the garage in. One, I can tell you, my experience, most want that converted back, but and I talked to them about that. We have people that can convert that back. It's not that expensive, unless they've done some crazy concrete work, or we will market it and put in the listing that seller will convert back prior to closing.
You ever thought, what about the option of cash only, and he's gonna price it right to sell, like that?
You can, if you want to give the house away. Again, I've got buyers for it.
Yeah, that would be the
Yeah.
seller's,
Yeah.
that would be my thing of like, look, if we're gonna run into all these problems, I guess maybe a cash only offer, and you wanna price it right here, that's an option.
Sure.
Have you run into it though where where that price difference in the square footage is so much higher and then pushes you out of that range you're comfortable with?
Yeah, some of them you will not take.
Okay.
If
Then
it's
we
that
get back
far
to the
off,
tactics we were talking
then
about before.
I'm with him. It's the time.
Okay.
We're just not, the best fit. So.
Tony, you have a question?
Well, I came across that exact scenario at least 5 or 10 different times. And when I was talking to, the city of Northport, talking with them and getting those old homes that are built in 1960, 1965 and 70, what they told me, because the computers were not accurate at that time, and I had the inspectors come out, and if everything was done perfect, up to code, the way it's supposed to be, they did lose a lot of records, So if they're not done exactly the way it's supposed to be, then they'll know that they never had an inspector out there and passed it. So I says, you got your one chance to get out of jail card free. There's no guarantee, but when they do windows and stuff like that, if they don't have the right color bolt going through those windows, they know that's not up to the right code. And they actually went out there and they had let some go through, and then had a lot of them that didn't. So,
Windows in Charlotte County, if it's 1 or 2 windows, you don't need a permit. I think it's 3 is the threshold.
No.
They changed it?
No,
No,
you need a permit for
but if you-
everything, whether
You
you're
didn't-
doing one window in your house.
You used to a couple
But if you
years
do
ago.
50%,
No, it's
you have
been
to do
longer
them
than
all.
a couple years.
Is
It's
that
been
correct?
longer than a couple
Okay,
years.
all right.
If you're doing one window in your house, or you're doing the whole, it's a $90 permit, or $190.
But and also, it's if you do a certain percentage, you have to do them all.
Right.
And they have to be up to new code.
Right,
As
right,
far as
right,
that.
right.
It just, hearing this conversation is case in point why I made my stance. I'm just saying, one, none of us work for the county, right? So, and they change their coding constantly, right? So we don't know if it's 1 window, 2
They
windows,
change their
3
workers,
windows,
too.
right? Right, absolutely. So for me, it's just I guess a snowball that I don't want to be involved
I
with.
agree with your decision. I'm looking forward to
I'll send them, man. I'm good with that. I mean, look at it this way, what'd you say, $190 permit
Yeah,
for
it's
some
$190
windows? So if you
permit.
find there's unpermitted windows, is it really too much to ask the seller to go pay the permit fee, the $190?
So
I'm
I
gonna sell
had
you a
one.
$300,000 house.
I had one exactly what you're talking about though. So I represented a buyer who was doing his first flip, okay? And the house was already on the radar with Charlotte County because the guy who he was buying it from and got foreclosed on had done all this unpermitted work. So I get him a meeting with the county, with the second in command at the building inspector's office, get him to promise that he's gonna do everything by the book, and as we're going through the work, he hasn't done anything. He lets the guy who works for the plumber tell him, no, you don't need permitting. And I told him, anything you add electric or plumbing or whatever, or subtract, you're gonna need permits for. 4 as-is contracts fell apart before he listened to what I've been telling him from day one. And fortunately, because his rehab work was so close to the time period of pulling the permits, the county never really knew that he did it after the fact. So he got a permit for the plumbing and had it inspected and passed, and a permit for the water heater, permit for the new ducts, permit for the electrical, all that. So I was able to attack it that way, but just like you're saying, and I guess a price point at some point is whether it's worth that trouble to you or not, right? Because it was a lot of headache. And for me, it was just a bonehead seller that wouldn't get it through his skull.
Did it close?
It did, finally. But once he did all that permit, once he finally got all the permits and got everything passed, we didn't take as is anymore. We went to general repair items only contracts.
And you got paid probably $1 an hour?
Pretty much. And it got to the point where after like his second or third flip, we just parted ways, couldn't work with him anymore.
Sure.
Can I, go ahead, John.
I got a question on the other side of the transaction. So, part of your ability to get such a high closing ratio in terms of the selling to listing price has got to be in the negotiation process at the end too. Okay, so you basically got to convince a buyer and a buyer's agent that top dollar is
There's
what
that,
they got to pay.
right? Amongst all the other talents that these guys have, they have the opportunity, they're strong
Can you guys
negotiators.
speak to that at all, or?
I don't look at it as convincing them, I look at it as communicating the market. And if I can produce the comps, and they communicate it to their buyer the same way, and, you know, then usually you can put the deal together.
I agree, it's just confidence in knowing I priced right accordingly, so it's not a matter of convincing them, it's just laying out the facts. I mean, I've already gathered the facts, here they are, I know what the value is.
Does this still work, you know, from being on the other side of the transaction, even as a good buyer's agent, or if the buyer's agent isn't good, maybe the listing agent, going back to the listing agent being good, going, hey, you do realize we're $5,000 apart. That's approximately $35 a month difference. Did you ever use that one?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Right?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, that works sometimes, and sometimes the buyer's agent doesn't know to think about that, so keep that in the back of your mind.
I so appreciate a buyer's agent on the other side, as that, I did buyers for many years, and I so appreciate one that we are working together. It's not automatically combative, or, you know, them trying to, listen, this isn't who's.
We're not attorneys that hate each other.
Yeah, this isn't a scoring contest. You're trying to help your client, I'm trying to help mine, and if we both, want to help, and everybody, wants to work together, I believe every deal could work out. Whether it's inspection problems or whatever it is, if everybody involved is really working for the common goal and to help one another, and I love that.
I think part of that too is because a lot of agents aren't familiar with their role as a transaction broker or
Sure,
a single
I agree.
agent, right?
Oh,
They want to
it's
pretend like they're a
blurred.
single agent, but they're not.
All the,
Yeah.
So,
yes.
one way to solve that problem is, A, get listings, right? B,
Yep.
sell the listings that are in offices that have good support. So, you don't have to battle with those agents that are idiots or incompetent. So,
You know, my favorite
look
thing
at our
with
inventory
buyers
first.
is when you're showing properties and you find one that your customer really likes, but deep down you know it's overpriced, and you go and you pull comps and it's like way overpriced, and you'll call the other agent and say like, what comps did you use? I can't find comps to support that price. Oh, I couldn't either, that's just what they want.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
okay.
that goes back to what I was saying with Nancy when we agreed that there's appraisers that get offended by that. There's plenty of agents that get really ticked off if you give them comps to tell them that they're way overpriced too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before you keep going, let me just have a disclaimer to the camera that we don't mean to disrespect any other realtors and or attorneys or past attorneys.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, we do? Okay. But hey, can I ask a burning question? I thought I knew the answer to this because I thought I was pretty smart at one time when I was in production. What's a bedroom? What is in a bedroom?
Door and closet.
I think you have to have a window and a closet.
It does not have to have a closet in Charlotte County.
Has to have 4 walls and have egress to the outside.
proper egress, 24 inches, or right, that a human being can fit through?
Window or door?
It does not have to have a closet?
No.
No,
Ooh,
really.
aha.
In New York it does.
So all these
And
2-bedrooms
per-
again are really 3 bedrooms, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
So now that's gonna vary from county to county?
Isn't it a
I
HUD
don't
thing
know.
though too? Like, doesn't HUD have requirements?
So where the closet does come into effect though, is on septic usage.
I thought that was bathrooms.
No.
Bathrooms and bedrooms.
Know how many people are gonna be in the house? When I went to do my
Yeah.
remodel,
Still,
if we put a closet in the room, it was gonna make me have to upgrade my septic.
because they were saying that made it a bedroom, but really they were wrong. It was already a bedroom. It couldn't be classified. Now, what
Did that
frustrates me
change?
there,
Well, it's good.
what really
We're talking
frustrates
about
me
two
there
different
things.
is, come on, if we're gonna take a 5x5 closet because it has a window and has a door and call it a bed, you're gonna frustrate buyers, you're gonna frustrate other agents.
Yeah.
Try to really be, conscientious about this, is it legitimately a bedroom?
And then you really wanna keep it at a, let's say it's got 3 bedrooms, and then it's got this other room they wanna call a bedroom. You don't wanna call it a bedroom. You wanna, because most people are on searches for 3 bedrooms. All of a sudden you make it a 4-bedroom house, and you do set up buyers as a buyer, and they may, you might not get your listing out in front.
Of a 3-bedroom buyer?
Yeah,
Well,
what you're taking.
I disagree because I'm gonna do 3+
That's what I do.
when I'm searching, so I disagree there. And
Yeah.
there's so many now that buyers that say, I want a 4-bedroom, or I want 3+ a den, and I say, okay, do you really need the 4th bedroom? Oh, no, I need an office, but that's why they want you to search
Right.
for 3+.
And,
So I would put that.
That,
Yeah.
I'm your seller, and it's a 3-bedroom and a den, and I want you to list it as
There's
a
no way I'd
4-bedroom.
work with you.
I expected that answer.
So, I'm sorry, repeat it.
So, it's a 3-bedroom and a den, you as a professional, you're clear on that, right? You also know what Charlotte County will call it, that they could call it a bedroom.
Yeah.
I, as the seller, I want you to call it a 4-bedroom.
I'm gonna try to compromise with you, and we're gonna list it either 3+ a den or 4, but in the description, I am gonna outline that this 4th bedroom per seller, is a den or could be used for a 4th bedroom.
Because
And
that's
what that's
the
gonna do-
being courteous to us as a.
Yes, I want, at the end of I want every buyer's agent or agent out there that works with, to actually have a good experience and want to show and sell our homes. Because that helps on days on market. I don't want it to be a conflict, and, because we all know some of the agent, that we go, oh man, they wanna offer on that person, this is gonna be a fight. We don't want that, and same thing as Keller Williams. I feel like that's the culture here. We wanna be good agents and stewards of the business.
But so then in Charlotte County, then what is the difference between a bedroom and a den? None.
You get
Window.
4 walls, egress to the outside, and a door, correct?
Okay, so if a den doesn't.
And
have-
please don't mark it if it's 5x5. Because you can't fit a bed in there.
Right, and I think it does come down to that common sense and just being honest and ethical. If you walk in, it's 5x5, I don't care if it has a closet. The smell test tells me that's not a bedroom. And you want to provide that great experience, right?
Although that's how I grew up,
If
in a
it's a
closet.
3-bedroom plus a den, that's how I'm listing it. It can easily be converted to a 4th bedroom, whatever the case may be, but being honest.
I agree. The thing is, we try to think of, the buyers are pulling homes from everywhere. We're working hard enough that, you're showing 8, 10, 12 homes a day, and the last thing I want to do is take a buyer there and mislead them or the agent. So try to keep that in mind whenever you're putting them in there. How's that gonna, is it really gonna work for somebody as a bedroom?
It may very well be. A 4-bedroom, you could have a pretty large family. They're rolling around in a minivan looking at homes with, 3 to 5 kids in the back. Any parents out there know what that's like. It's not fun, it's stressful and stuff. Don't have them come to your house that, you've listed as a 4-bedroom. It's not. It's just not,
4-bedroom,
it's not
1,800
right.
square feet.
4-bedroom, 1,800.
Well, especially when it's situated
1,200.
right by the
1,200 square feet, right.
Especially when it's sitting there right by the front door with glass pane windows.
Yeah.
Great point. Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, it's sitting.
Holiday Homes has a model like that where there's
I don't think we're using names here.
Well, I'm just saying the model.
Please back
though.
up.
I'm just saying the model. There's other builders too, but where you walk in and you've got the formal dining room and the formal family room, and some people will an option is to create that dining room, put doors on it, and they're typically glass doors or like French doors, right, with the mullions in them and everything, and then no closet.
It's a, it, you know,
It
it's
doesn't
a-
make
it's a
sense.
real, it's
No,
not-
it doesn't.
No, it's a real life thing. John, you gonna say something? No? Jim, you already said what you needed to say? You know, this was supposed to go an hour, but in respect of everybody's time, is there something that you guys wanted to, a tip that you wanted to, let me actually, you know what, I'm gonna ask you another question. I'm not gonna ask you another question, I forgot it, I lost it. I didn't have lunch today. I didn't have lunch today. So, reminder, master the craft with pricing. Don't take overpriced listings if you don't have to, right?
Or know your options.
Do, right.
Do.
That's
No,
have the
we- we- we-
conversation. Don't just take it to the list. Have the
And
To be
conversation.
better negotiators on the other end.
So, can I add something about that?
Yeah.
To all you millennials or whatever, I don't negotiate by text. I refuse. You wanna talk to me about contract, call me. I won't do it by text.
So that's an awesome point, because one thing that I can't stand as a listing agent is when somebody just blindly emails me a contract and doesn't give me a heads up by a phone call.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
And I'm okay with the
I
text
have
for that,
one other
that says
point.
I just sent you a contract, but don't
I'm-
text me to go back and forth.
But I'm talking about just a blind email.
Yeah, I
No
know.
text, no phone call.
One other point to that, we've had several lately, with our team, they'll call and they're upset, I sent you an offer at 11 o'clock last night,
Yeah.
and now it's 9 in the morning, and I haven't heard anything, and it turns out they texted, and they were texting our landline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just because an MLS is, I mean, you don't always know, so, you
And they
might
can
call
go
them and
into
have a
spam.
conversation.
I've had to go in spam and junk too.
Absolutely.
I prefer the phone call, hey, I just sent an offer over.
All the
Absolutely.
I mean, also, just raise a point, if you're the listing agent and you get a text from a buyer's agent regarding either negotiations or an offer, I guess to put it softly, I'll just ask it as a question, what does that tell you about the other agent and the negotiating skills and the strength,
They're young.
right? Just for whatever reason, they're bashful, right? Like, call up, have a phone call, have a conversation.
I think should, to
That's
me,
just the right way to do it.
could be. To me, it's just a different in the times.
Yeah.
Difference in the times.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be presenting a contract, a lot of time, I feel like the groundwork's all laid in that conversation.
Yeah.
And I know that we're working together, and he know, cause I tell you what, I don't know what tone you have in that text.
Yeah.
That's right.
How many of us, I thought, man, that was rude.
Yeah.
And actually, they were saying it in a completely different way, and it wasn't rude at all.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just
Yeah,
say,
they
if
could
somebody
have
wants
your-
to do that, I'll send a text back and say, I'd love to talk to you about it, give me a
Yeah,
call, we'll talk
absolutely.
about it. I don't-
Kurt, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want a question for, Matt and Becky, or how often, and something I need to learn, or get better at, when we're listing, how often do you list the house and you're not gonna use an as-is contract, you want a general repair contract for this? I mean,
I would always rather
how
have
often
that.
do you do the general repairs?
I don't, but I would much rather have one.
Not
because-
many, but I have no problem with it. I
Well,
mean,
it ties
unless I have
the
a
buyer
seller,
in
it's just,
better.
I just, great question, because I do have the conversation in the listing appointment with every seller, the difference between the two.
Mhm.
Because, some of them are adamant, they've had a bad experience, whatever it is, sometimes you can explain it and then they go, oh, actually, I want the general one,
Mhm.
now that I understand that.
Right.
But their friend is telling them, make sure that whoever you get's using as is, they don't quite understand the difference. So I have the conversation, if they specifically want one, well then that's what we're gonna use and I'll put that in the listing.
Right.
Otherwise, I am happy to present either, just send me an offer, I'll present it.
And you could win that listing because the agent you're up against doesn't even know that the two are there. You gave that education to them.
Yes,
Because
sir.
I'll tell you what, over the last 10 years,
Right.
most of the agents that have been coming out of here, unless they've been to like our contracts classes,
Yeah.
they don't know general repair items exist.
I think that's a great thought that you're presenting both contract at the listing.
Who would use a general repair?
I'm sorry?
You would use a general?
I do the same thing.
I would
Matt
use
does.
either
We
one. It
explain
depends on
them-
the
We explain
situation.
both contracts at the listing appointment.
But if you're
And
working with
there's
a
times
buyer,
where-
which one do you do?
What's that?
If you're working with a buyer, which one do you use?
If, especially like on a new construction type house where things are pretty much gonna be solid and they really want that house, go with the general repair.
I'll tell you
items.
one other thing, I'll tell you another thing that I actually appreciate, if you have a buyer, and maybe you've done other deals with them, or you've offered on it, and you know that they are gonna nitpick, like they want everything, I mean, they're, you know,
Yeah,
the.
nitpick.
Right.
Send it on a standard, because hey, it saves us fighting.
Yeah.
You know what they're gonna
Yeah.
require,
Yeah.
so why not go ahead and build that in there? Now, if Mike is adamant, we're going back on an as-is, and but again, it goes back to that conversation.
Yeah.
If you're telling me, hey, Matt, I'm sending that on a standard, cause here's why, okay, great, so then when I go in, maybe, I'm gonna do everything, not to send it back on an as-is, maybe we change the amount, maybe,
Yeah.
Chris, instead of 1.5% of that 300,000, we're gonna do half, or a flat rate,
Yeah.
2,500. And all of a sudden, everybody's happy, hey, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm good with
That's
that.
that's the
Because
big thing.
some buyers think, well, they just, they won't do anything. Well,
Yeah.
no, my guy's not saying that. So,
Yeah.
It's communication.
Yep.
Yeah, setting expectations.
Educate your sellers on that general repair items, because they look at the 1.5%, if it's a price point, they're like, it'll be out 30 grand.
Yep,
Well,
okay.
first of all, one of them, if you own the house and take care of it, like with your permits and
Yep.
your termites, that pretty much kind of knocks those out. Maybe the termites not as much, because there's,
Right.
some unseen things there. But we just say, look, we can get it down to a flat dollar figure. And the
Absolutely.
ones that we've done recently have been like 1,000 for this, 2,000 for that, 500 for this.
Well,
I agree.
I always tell my sellers too that even though most agents use an as-is contract, there really is no such thing as as-is anymore, because when they do their inspections, they're still gonna ask for repairs. It's just
Yeah,
that
but
we
don't
have-
have to
they're not
be for
committed.
GFIs to get replaced on an as-is.
Yeah.
Oh,
they ask us
but
for
people
everything,
will.
Just,
So-
When you get that offer from the buyer's agents by email, whether they contact you or not before, do you always talk to your sellers before you send them the offer? Go over it with them on the phone? Or
absolutely.
Oh.
do you ever send it?
oh, you mean, do I just
call.
send them the offer?
Yeah.
Oh,
Here, sign this.
absolutely not. No, we're gonna talk about it, and quite honestly, if any of you that's worked, I'll tell you, hey, with this person, I've got one right now, he's a veteran, and we have to go through things several times. We actually just put him under contract this morning. I drive to him every time, because I need to sit down and go through it with him, and I don't want any confusion, so. But 100%, I'm not going to just send an offer
Yeah,
and not go through it.
And when I go through it and look at it and figure out like, okay, I know my seller's gonna be okay with this, and this, but they're gonna take objection to this, whether
Yeah.
it's closing date or the price or whatever, so that when I'm presenting it to them, I can say, let me go over all the good points. I know there's one thing that we may
Yeah.
have to discuss and counter on, but let me tell you all the good things about this contract, and then we'll figure out how to deal with this.
So let me
one
ask
that's
you,
not so good.
how do you know what they're gonna like and what they're not?
Well, I know like some of them, like if I get like a quick close and it's an old lady and she's gonna need 2 months to close, I know the closing
I was
date.
just joking, I was gonna say, cause you have conversation with them.
Oh, exactly.
And you have a
That's right.
relationship with them.
Right, exactly.
That's what it's about.
Let me try to wrap this up, because I just wanted to recognize something that I saw in this that I didn't say earlier. Talk about rock stars. Gianna gave me this. Ashley and Bill had no price reduction, didn't have to request any price reductions in 2019 on any of your listings. Is that correct?
Wow.
No? Gianna gave me that information.
Actually, sitting on one, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure we have price reductions.
Yeah, I have price reductions.
All right.
2019.
They're normal, we're all human.
Yeah.
We're all human.
So market,
So you're rock stars, but you're not superheroes.
Yeah.
Working on it.
we're
We have-
human.
we have
Superhero
superhero
training.
powers.
I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So Nancy, I want to ask you a question. As an appraiser doing this for some time, you go over realtor. What's your biggest pet peeve about realtors and pricing?
Was that eye roll because there's so many?
Did you see her eyes roll?
What time is it?
I didn't mean to eye roll.
Give us your top three.
What's your top three?
Someone said, Vicki, I believe you said it, this is just awful when the realtor says this. I'm trying to bring their price in. Now, if I don't bring it in, your deal may not work and you're not gonna pay it, correct? So I would think you'd wanna work with me. So many realtors do not wanna work with me at all. And my first question will be, I'm looking at the comps, what did you use for comps, because I'm not finding them.
Right.
And they get so offended.
Yeah.
Really? Come on, I'm trying to do this deal for you, so you get
Right.
paid.
Well, I love
You
the
know.
ones that just say like.
I'm
I
already
couldn't
paid,
find
so it
any-
doesn't matter to me, I'm trying to help you, I was a realtor, I know what
Yeah,
you're
it's
going
like,
through, I was
really?
trying to
I did.
help you.
And actually, Nancy, you and I had that conversation just a few months ago, and I appreciate that, that's awesome. Because
Well, just ask you.
what normally happens is when we do get a bad appraisal, or what we feel is a bad
What
appraisal,
you
but
feel
when
is
that bad
a-
appraisal comes in and there's been no communication, that's like a double punch to the face.
Right, right.
So, and not to pick on appraisers or anything, but when
But
I
you're
have
gonna.
I know, but when I do have one that comes back low and it's my listing, I always ask if they would mind if I get a copy so I can review it. Because having underwritten appraisals and stuff, I've found things like where an appraiser has said that, it's a three-bedroom house with a two-car garage, when in actuality, that garage has been converted to the third bedroom. So it's either a three-bedroom with no garage, or it's a two-bedroom with a garage. And so, like, the adjustments may not have been done properly, or I've found math errors. I found errors where they've taken the boilerplate and they didn't make corrections, and we're talking about a house in Port Charlotte, and they're talking about the neighborhood in Gulf Cove is, you know.
No, you're
So,
right.
you mean,
You're
if
right.
you can get your hands on that appraisal, there's things that I've looked for.
Back in my world, I didn't think the appraiser could hand over an appraisal.
We can't, I
No,
can't give
the-
it to you.
No,
No,
they
but
give
the
it to the
lender will.
client, and
Yeah.
we can have.
I got you.
Right.
Yeah, I usually get it from the lender.
Yeah.
I have one last quick question, about like cookie cutter communities and stuff like that. The last appraisal that we got that was so bad is 15,000 under, and it would not give us any value for being lakefront in a community that has lakefront or non-lakefront lots. And when you buy that lot from the builder and build with the builder, there's a lot premium on there for being on
Yes,
water.
yeah. They should definitely give the credit for that. However, you need to look on, the public, is that IMAP that shows the value of the land. See what they have, see what the county has, and then look up the ones without the lake and see the difference in between. Because I like to give a credit for a lake view, who wouldn't? But I can't give it if IMAP is showing the same value for with and without. I run across that a lot.
And I actually provided all that to him, and he would not
He's wrong.
adjust at all.
He's wrong.
And it
I'm
was
sorry.
it a bank field?
It wasn't a lake per se, it was a sewage treatment.
Because sometimes you can have
It's
something.
a sewage treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go back. Steve, I have one more question, and then we'll let the panel go.
For Nancy, once you send out that your appraisal report, does it take, if there's an adjustment that's needed, can you just do that, or does the lender have to get a different appraisal?
I'm not
Like,
sure what
if
you
you under appraise that home, and then, after, and then you realize that you need to make adjustment or correct it, is there, can you just do that, or do
No.
you have to wait?
The bank has to come and talk to me about it.
So you need to go to the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
And ask the buyer's agent to have their customer go to the lender.
Yeah.
And the lender needs to go back to the appraiser.
Yeah.
And the appraiser has to be willing to do that.
Well, and there's a formal appraisal dispute you have to fill out too.
So that's.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up, but the panel, I wanna thank the panel for you guys.
Thank you very much.
If you guys have any questions, then hit them on the way out the door. Not hit them, but ask your questions on the way out the door. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nancy, that's the first time I heard that from an appraiser. I love you. You're speaking our love language, you know? By making adjustments and asking for help.
That's why she's sitting in this room, because she was willing to listen to me on the deal. And she.
Yes.
I would like to send them home
It's because you don't know.
One of those everywhere I go, that's how you can tell.
So are you coming? I gotta bring up this
When they are under appraised, that is pretty much.